Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining this morning's session on digital marketing. My name's Kristy. I am a presenter on behalf of Business Station for the Commonwealth Government's Digital Solutions Program. I'm also an advisor as part of the program, and day to day I sort of work in and around the digital marketing space. So we are going to go through what I sort of considered to be some of the basics of digital marketing. So some of this you might know, some might be new concepts, and I would encourage you to use our webinar platforms and even our advisor services to sort of find out a little bit more if there are any topics that you're not quite across yet and that you do want to learn more on. Today, I would encourage you to be as interactive with me as possible, or as you'd like to be. Use the chat functionality to ask questions at any time. And then there'll also be a little bit of time at the end of the session to ask more questions if they pop up. In terms of what we're going to go through, as I mentioned, we're going to cover some of the basics of digital marketing, but we're going to look at the key components of online marketing. And I guess what I've sort of determined to be some must-dos. So within that, we're going to look at your website and a few tips and hints on your website itself. We'll talk a little bit about some online business listings, a bit of search engine optimization and search engine marketing, so SEO and SEM. Touch on some social media, and then end with a little bit of info on email marketing. So quite a lot to get through, but as I mentioned, this is an overview and there is a lot more information on each of these topics if you'd like to know more. But before we get into the specifics, just looking at online marketing has some huge benefits. I find that a lot of the small businesses we work with are in, you may be in the online game in terms of you have a presence, or you could be an online business, so a digital sort of based business. So no matter whether you are, have a bricks and mortar sort of store, or are in the services industry perhaps, or you have an e-commerce store, so to speak, you do need to have that online presence. Customers will use the internet to search and to find all kinds of different businesses, and they'll actively seek out information. So that information could be as simple as your contact details. It could be what products and services you offer, or it could be to find out more on how they can actually purchase products and services from you. And they might want to do that online at a time that suits them, as opposed to working within your opening hours, perhaps. So the online marketing benefits are huge. Obviously, getting that global reach is a major factor and a huge benefit of online marketing. You can effectively reach a lot more people. It is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it's 24/7. Like I said, people want to shop when it suits them, as opposed to working within your opening hours. And that's not necessarily just shopping. It could be to make an appointment or just to find out more information. It is low cost or cost effective. So I believe that digital marketing is accessible to any size business or budget. The key thing there is that if you have a lower budget, you're going to have to upskill yourself and do a lot more yourself, as opposed to using third parties to be able to implement things for you. So there's always that time versus cost comparison that you'll need to make as well. Once you do implement any digital marketing, whether it be paid advertising or just, some of the other areas that we're going to talk about today, you can measure your results very, very quickly. So it's not like placing an ad and then waiting, for a few weeks to see if anybody phoned or if it was effective. You can start to track clicks. You can start to track interaction with your business and really measure those results pretty much straight away. Obviously, the more time you give any activity that you've commenced or you're undertaking, the better the results are going to be, or the more data you'll have to analyze. But you can certainly start to see very quickly how things are tracking. You can be very targeted with any digital advertising or marketing. You can really accurately reach your target market. A key thing with this is you need to know exactly who your target market is. So who is it that you would like to come through your doors or to buy products or services from you? Once you know who they are, you can then determine where they consume media, what sort of websites they're on, what sort of social media platforms they're using. And you can place your advertising specifically where you know your target market is. And lastly, it allows you to build really lasting relationships with your customers. And that's really through reviews and social media and that two-way engagement. The relationship can extend well beyond just that point of transaction, whether they buy something from you, book with you, or have that one-off sort of purchase. You can continue that relationship well into the future. So lots of benefits. But it all does start with your website. So your website, it's obviously not the only marketing activity that you need to consider, but it really is at the core of your online marketing. Your customers do need to be able to find that website, and that's where SEO comes into it, and SEM, and you also need to actively engage with current and future customers online, and that's where things like business listings, review sites, and social media can come into it. So we will talk more about that stuff, but first of all, just your website itself, it is that place where people will go to find out about your products and services, to make purchases, even if your store, your physical office or store are closed, or maybe you don't have a physical premises. So I would think about your website, or think of it as your 24-hour-a-day, 7-day a week, your number one salesperson. So if you were to employ a salesperson, and this salesperson would be representing your business, it would be telling people about your customers, and really trying to get people across the line. So look at your website now and ask yourself, is it doing your business justice? Is it selling your product or service as it should? Now, when you're looking at web design, there are a few key elements that you should consider. First of all, the purpose of your website. So what is the purpose of your website? Is it a place where people can make bookings, transact, make a purchase? If that's the case, you really need to make sure that you have that online bookability, purchasability, that kind of thing. Your purpose might be something else. It may be that you just have a website so that people can obviously find out about your products and services, but you really just want to get them through your doors. Perhaps you're a venue or something like that. So whatever the purpose is, you have to be clear with what the purpose is, and then cater to the needs of what that user is actually, or what the purpose is for that user. So always keep that in mind. Communication is absolutely critical. People need to be able to get information quickly, and they need to be able to get it easily. So have a look at how the content flows on your website. We will talk about SEO, or search engine optimization, but there's always that consideration of writing content for for search engines, essentially, to make sure that your content is doing or is helpful from an SEO perspective, but communication and making sure that it actually suits your customers is absolutely critical. Now, if you're finding that there are people phoning and they've all got a similar question, then perhaps that's something that's not easily accessible on your website. So really have a think about the conversations that you're having offline, and what needs to go online as a result of that. But make sure that, from a web design perspective, and we'll talk about this, that, people shouldn't have to be really digging deep and going to hundreds of pages on your site to get the info they need. It should be quick and easy. Your overall look is really important. Now, this includes your images, your fonts, your colors. So all of that, sort of that branding element. Your images really have to position your brand correctly. They should be, if possible, professional images, but certainly always true to your product or service. So there is a risk in using stock images, in that, it may not depict your product or service exactly as it is. So the recommendation is always to get your own photography. Again, there's a cost associated with that, generally, but you can upskill yourself depending on what sort of photography it is, whether it's venue photography, or if it's stock, so not stock, but images of your stock. So you can really learn a lot online as well. Now, someone's just asked what the best dimension of images for websites is. It's a really, really interesting question, and there is some specifications in terms of your page size, but dimensions of your image, or the orientation of your images, most websites are sort of more of a landscape orientation. And then you've got social media, which is very much portrait. So if you're looking at getting a photographer in, for example, you will need a selection of portrait and landscape images. In terms of size, it really depends on your overall website design, how that looks. And we'll go through shortly, you talk about sort of page widths and that kind of thing. So always keep that in mind, but it will really depend on your layout as to what specific dimensions you use. Also, we'll touch on your website being built for mobile. And if you see there's a point further down the page on that, look at how your images work on mobile as well. Because again, anything mobile goes to portrait, whereas a traditional desktop is really more landscape. So it's finding that balance there. Your fonts should be easy to read. Obviously, your font size should be large enough to suit your demographic or who it is that's on your website. And again, that should be translating over to a mobile environment so that it appears just as clear. Colors, obviously, your branding, I touched on, so keep that in mind. It should be complementary to your overall brand, and again, suit your target market. So do a bit of research on that. Navigation is the next element. So the navigation is really looking at how easy it is to take action and move around your site. So looking at menus and that kind of thing. The most common pattern of or structure of a menu is that F pattern, which is a top to bottom and then left to right. So that is, again, the most common. It's not necessarily saying that's right for your brand. You have to know your target market and the type of people that are using your site as to what's going to appeal most to them. Load time is really important. Now, going back to images, in terms of what size images you're uploading, you want to make sure that they're clear, not pixelated, but not causing any load time issues. So again, always look at that when you're looking at the dimensions of your images. Now, there's some great Google developer tools that will do a bit of a scan of your website for load time, and it will advise where there are speed issues. So have a look at that. It's just a Google speed tool. So it's a speed test, essentially. So it's under the Google developer tools. Certainly have a look at that. A really simple fix with load time most of the time is image sizes. The next thing is being mobile friendly. So being mobile friendly is absolutely crucial. Now, most websites will be built where they are actually able to, I guess, interchange between mobile and desktop, or as you see on the screen there, they will change their size and shape based on the size device that they're being looked at. So a mobile site is built for mobile specifications only, whereas a site that's able to be responsive, like what you see on your screen, is sort of the preferred format. That way you're not building multiple sites, you're building one site that's responsive and it will change its size and shape. Now, keep in mind that everything about your website has to be speaking to your target market. I know I've said it a few times already, but think about your design, your colors, your fonts, the technology, the functionality. It's all about who you're aiming your marketing towards. So go back to some traditional sort of marketing strategy and look at who your target market is. Now, it seems like a simple one, but a lot of businesses, that I work with from a marketing perspective really can't answer that simple question. Or the common response is, I want everyone to come to my website, or I want everyone to buy from me. And whilst that's the case, it's not realistic. So you really have to target everything on your site to who it is that it's going to appeal to make sure that when they're browsing your site, they're comfortable that they're in the right place, that they've found a company that meets their needs, their wants, and their values, essentially. So that's sort of a touch on the web design side of things. Obviously, having a great website is one thing. People have to find it, and that's where SEO comes into it. Another thing about websites is if you are, perhaps you have a website and you're looking at developing a new website, or you may even not have a website yet, so you're looking for a brand new site. A common question is, should you or shouldn't you work with developers? Working with developers, I think it's fantastic. If you're looking at your website being your number one salesperson, obviously it's really important that it's professionally designed and built. But you can certainly build your own websites very, very easily. There's a lot of tools and templates. There's a lot of content management systems available. But if you are working with a web developer, there are a lot of people in the market that are looking for web development work. So always have a look at their past projects and make sure that it sort of aligns with what you'd expect from your website. Understand their level of expertise. Have they built a website like yours before? In particular, functionality-wise, if you're looking at a specific kind of functionality, make sure that they're able to actually deliver on that. The process should always be transparent as well. So they should clearly outline exactly what the price includes, how many pages, how many revisions of the design. Let's say they deliver something and you're not quite happy with what it looks like. How many times will they tweak that based on your feedback for that same fixed price. Obviously, a fixed price is hugely beneficial. You would never agree to web development based on an hourly rate or anything like that. So you understand exactly what that price includes. And if you can, I think it's beneficial to meet with a developer face-to-face. Now, that could be face-to-face like we're doing now. It doesn't have to be in person, but having some dialogue with them. Things can get lost in translation via email and messaging services. So I would always try and give them a call, have a chat, make sure you guys are both on the same page. Now, I touched on content management systems before. A content management system is essentially the structure of a website that allows you to update the content yourself. So some common content management systems are WordPress is probably the most common. And then you've got Shopify. If you've got an e-commerce website, there's Weebly, there's Wix, there's tons of them. If you're working with a developer, insist that they build your website in a content management system. You don't want them to hard code your entire site, and therefore, if you want to change one word, you have to go back to a developer to change that. You want as much of your website editable as possible. And that way you can go in and update your website within seconds or minutes at the least. And the experts say that your website should be as easily updatable as your social media. So something changes in your business, you should be able to go onto your website and quickly change it. Now, that could be something as simple as a new image that you get. Let's just say someone's taken a great shot for you. You want to get it online straight away. You don't want to be waiting weeks and pay lots of money to a developer just for making minor changes. So having it built in a content management system will mean that you have a lot more control of updating your site. Another question that's quite common when you're looking at content management systems is which one is best. I've named a few, but that really comes down to what the purpose of your website is, what sort of functionality and technical aspects you need to have on it as well. Once you've got your website and you're starting to look at what sort of content you'll have on it, content is absolutely crucial. You need to write content, as I said before, for conversation. So that you're answering questions that your customers or prospective customers might have, but also for SEO. So it's really important that what you're writing appeals to a search engine or web bots so that you can appear in relevant searches. To know what searches you should be coming up in, you have to do keyword research. Now, we have an entire webinar on keyword research because it's such an interesting topic and such a crucial part of your online marketing. So I'd really encourage you to have a look at that if you haven't already. But keyword research is really the process of thinking about what your customers might be searching to get to a business like yours. So generally, it starts with a bit of a brainstorm. You might say, all right, well, I think customers search Fremantle cafes to get to me. You then start inputting some of these terms that you think people might be searching to get to you, and have a look at what the volumes are per month. So if you're trying to rank really well for Fremantle cafes, but when you have a look at the search volume on that, there's actually 10 people per month searching that term, it's not really valuable to you. So you need to have a brainstorm and then prove what the actual search volumes are. There's ways that you can get ideas for your keywords as well. So have a look at that webinar and it will really expand on that. But it is essentially a brainstorm and then a bit of a discovery of what these keywords might be and then proving what the search volumes are. Once you know what your keywords are for each page, because each page will rank in its own right from a search engine perspective, your content then has to not only feature those keywords and speak to those keywords, but it has to talk to your target audience or to your target market. So keep that in mind. You have to talk how your target market would expect you to talk, and you have to answer questions that they may have. The content on each page of your website should be original as well. So keep that in mind. You don't want to be repeating content on pages. Each page will have its own purpose. So make sure that the content is relevant to that page. In saying that, I would make sure that the content is succinct and to the point. You've got, a person that is going to read that and be filtering through this information to make a decision on your business. So headlines are really good to break up content. They're really important for SEO as well. So we'll talk about that when we get to the SEO side of things. But headlines will really draw people's attention to various sections on your website. Bullet points can be really helpful. Bullet points can really break up the size of sentences and break up content. So again, it's more appealing. Make sure there's not too many bullet points, because otherwise you lose that ability to be conversational or to provide good quality information. It just becomes very factual. Hyperlinking is really important, linking, and that's internal page linking. So let's say you've got a homepage that talks about you've got product A, product B, product C. As someone reads product A or hovers over product A, that should click with one click, they should be able to get straight through to the page that has that information on it. That sort of internal hyperlinks, although that internal page linking is really good for customers because it means that there's less work to get the information that we need. And the less work that a customer has to do to get the information, the closer they're going to get to making a decision, which is buying, booking, taking some kind of action that you want them to take. It's also great for SEO as well. And the last thing I'll say about your content is make sure you proofread. Spelling errors not only really impact professionalism, but it can be detrimental from an SEO perspective as well. Looking at the functionality and accessibility, so your headings are really important. As I mentioned, they're important for the customer or your consumer to really be able to gaze their eyes over a page and be drawn to different sections. But consistency is really important. So making sure that the headings are the same on each page. The 3 clicks or less rule is a really good one. So making sure that people can get to certain things on your website with 3 clicks or less. So all internal pages of your website should be accessible within that 3 clicks or less rule. So have a look at that. Have a look at your website now. And if you're trying to sort of, I guess, take people down a rabbit hole, it means that it's more and more difficult for them to get to that end result, which is to transact on some level. A home link is really important. You don't have to have the word home as a button where people can click, but it is sort of an unspoken rule that your logo should take people home. So I should be able to be anywhere on your website, click your logo, and it takes me back to that home page. That's really helpful if I have gone to several pages and I just want to start from the beginning or just get back to where I was. Different to the back button, which would take you back the path that you had come, the home button will just take you straight to that home page. So keep that in mind. Your navigation, I mentioned that F pattern. A traditional navigation is always good because it's easy and people know how to use it. But no matter whether you have a more modern navigation or traditional, having something that's consistent across all pages is really important. Your interactive elements are also important so that people can interact with you. So things like your social icons, so making sure that, if you've got social media icons, that they're easily accessible, perhaps, depending on the importance you place on social media, they could be in the header or the footer of your website. Any buttons or calls to action. So buttons can really help guide users through your site, but calls to action are really directing the user to take a specific action. So if you do have call to actions like a book now type button, make it very, very obvious. Buy now, call us, all of those kind of things. They have to be very, very obvious. But you want one key call to action per page. So you don't want to find out more and then a buy now and then a contact us, all sort of the equivalent style button, because from a consumer's perspective, we're like, well, what do we do here? Do we call? Do we find out more? Should we just buy it? So stick true to what it is that you want people to, what action you want people to take on that particular page. The last thing when it comes to interactive elements is make sure that anything clickable, including that could be images, links, buttons, are obvious to the user that they can be clicked. So normally if it's just a word, normally you would expect to see either a different color or an underline, and that kind of signifies to the user, hey, I can click this. Sometimes with images or other elements, your cursor will change to a hand, for example, or, vice versa. So start to think about that and make sure that's obvious as well. From a technology side of things, I mentioned earlier the responsiveness is absolutely crucial so that it does appear well on devices of any shape and size. Definitely build with a content management system, because that means that as different browsers have upgrades and that technology changes, you can continually upgrade your website so it is actually working across all of those platforms. The online bookability or purchasability is absolutely essential, and so is hosting. So make sure that you have reliable web hosting. Don't go for a cheap option if it's not reliable. So just always check that. You don't want your website to be down when people are trying to interact with you or make purchases. So keep that in mind as well. Now, in terms of layout, we were talking a little bit about dimensions before, but there's recommendations around your layout width. So current standard is about 960 pixels. That's in the active page area, not including the background. Your background would extend beyond that to factor in larger and smaller screens. So really consider your layout width. Your website or the layout should be modern and clean and easy to read and obviously navigate, but making sure that it looks fresh, not too text heavy, or that it's spread out with a good combination of menus, images, text. The organization of your website is really important. So making sure that your content and then the sections and subsections that your content might be in is well organized within your existing layout. Your homepage should feature your most important content, so that people can get a real sense of who you are just by looking at that homepage, because that will encourage them to go that next step. So keep in mind, let's say I've done a search, there's 20 results that have come up. You might be, let's say, number 5, 6. So scroll down, I have a look, but there's some words there that are really important, in that title description, your meta description, to get me to click through to your website. But once I click, I'm going to judge you within about 1 to 2 seconds on what your business is all about and whether or not it meets my needs just by what I see on that homepage. And like I said, that's in 1 to 2 seconds. So the homepage is absolutely crucial to get people to go to that next step and keep reading, basically. Subpages are just as important. They should have consistent layouts within them, and the information should be quite easy to read and to find there. Normally, you'd have a footer. Your footer would have your contact information, and most of the time it will have a repetition of your main menu as well, sort of laid out as a block at the bottom. And then navigation, again, the layout of your navigation, making sure that it's easy to find your main pages and any sub pages, and making sure that that navigation layout stays the same across your site. So that's your website itself. Now we're going to look at SEO. So we've used the term SEO a few times. For those that don't know what it is, SEO stands for search engine optimization. So in very simple terms, it's that process of improving your site to increase its visibility in relevant searches. So relevant searches is really important. We've spoken about keyword research, but basically what a web bot will do is it'll crawl your website to understand what your website and what your business is all about. Now, it will index each page individually in a database, and then it will list your website's pages within results where there's relevant search terms. So that then results in increased visitation to your website, because you'll be coming up higher in searches based on how much SEO you do on each individual page of your website. So that keyword research is absolutely crucial. There's no point coming up first on pages that nobody's actually searching for. So think about that. Now, one common thing that I do hear with developers is that they'll say, oh, we'll get you, first page results for a range of search terms, but you need to make sure there's been research done behind that. So let's say you've got a bike hire business, for example, and your web developer, gets you top page results for bike hire terms, but that's not what people are searching. People are searching for bike tours, for example, or something along those lines. So really think about, you have to think like the consumer. Before you build a site, before you make any changes on your website, you have to do this keyword research. Know what people are actually searching to get to your site. Now, there's a few tools you can use. There's the Google Keyword Planner tool, which is really good. That's in your Google Ads area. There's also Uber Suggest, keywords everywhere. So there's a few different platforms that you can use to do some of this keyword research, but I would really encourage you to have a look at our keyword research webinar. Now, good SEO is the culmination of hundreds of different tactical efforts. It does change and evolve. So things that you may have done that resulted in, really good rankings in the past may not be as significant today. So it is important that you continually update and fine tune your SEO, but it does take time. So if you're making changes and doing things today, allow at least a few weeks to a month before you start to see any results. So keep that in mind. You need to also be on top of any algorithm changes. And if there is a change that's coming out, you have to modify your SEO so that you still come up well if you've achieved good results. Now, I'm going to go into some SEO now. Some of it gets a bit technical. Some of it's quite obvious, but do keep in mind we also have extensive information by way of webinars, workshops, and advisors that specialize in SEO. So if this is something that's quite new to you, I'd really encourage you to find out a little bit more if you can. Okay, so there's two types of SEO or two elements to SEO. There's on-page SEO, which is everything that happens on your website that affects the ranking. And then there's off-page SEO, which is everything that happens away from your website that directs people back to your site that affects your ranking. So a few things that are quite obvious. You've got readable URLs. You've got those internal links, as I mentioned, so page-to-page linking. 301 redirects, just redirecting, basically search engine results will go into pages that have been taken down, will then be redirected to a new location where there is a live page, basically. Your page load times I mentioned, title tags, meta descriptions, there's alt tags, heading tags. So I'm going to expand on some of those because they do get a little bit technical. But just going through the obvious ones first. So your URLs, they should be readable, they should make sense, and they should be based on your keyword research. So conduct your keyword research and then start labeling your URLs accordingly. So in this example, you can see there's businessstation.com.au/training, and then the being, a good option and not so good option is sometimes when you've got a content management system, you might create a new page and it gives you some kind of code as opposed to being a readable word or term that makes sense. So that one's pretty straightforward. Your internal linking, I mentioned. So here on the left-hand side, you'll see an example there of internal linking. So this is the homepage of a website. Those words that are in yellow there, they're actually links. So they're signified that they're links because they look a bit different. If I hover over them, my cursor also changes and I can click and go through to the relevant page. In this particular paragraph, there's probably a little bit or a few more opportunities there. They've just focused on function rooms and self-contained apartments as the two keywords here. But there could be other opportunities there where they talk about 1 and 2 bedroom suites and that kind of thing. So that'll just make it super easy for that particular customer that's reading this content to get from the homepage where they go, oh, these guys do function rooms, to actually clicking through and finding more about the function rooms. Now, on the right-hand side, you see an example of a redirection, and that's, think of it like a postal redirection. If someone sends a letter to an old address, it automatically gets forwarded. And that's the same thing. If somebody accidentally goes, or however they've managed to get to a URL that is no longer active, they're automatically redirected to a page that is active. Now, this could be just as simple as your homepage, or it could be a page that has similar content so that it still satisfies the customer as well. Title tags. Title tags are an interesting one. Now, each of the pages of your website should have its own unique title tag. Now, that title tag is what you see there in the red box. It should include the main keywords for that page. So it's not the headline that you would actually see on the page. This is only visible in the back end of your website. Now, most content management systems will have a good SEO area where you can it'll say title tag and you'll type what you want the title tag to be. If not, it will be in the coding and it may require developer assistance. But again, you've done your keyword research. You know what words you want this particular page to rank for. Your title tag is really important, absolutely crucial component of SEO. Now, the optimal length of a title tag is about 60 characters. So that's long enough to display a good title without it getting too cut off. Don't use any stock words like the and is and those kind of things because it's just sort of wasted text. The preferred format is to put your primary keywords first. So keep that in mind, primary keywords and then subsequent keywords. But it is a critical factor for web bots. But in addition to that, it can heavily influence people that have searched terms and they're assessing what results they want to go with. If it's more appealing, it's a lot more likely to be clicked and someone therefore go through to that page of your site, because that's really your ultimate goal. Now, there has been a slight change with Google recently through an update, and I believe I haven't seen it myself as yet, but Google is rewriting title tags. So if yours is too short or too long or too keyword heavy, or if it has incorrect or obsolete information, as I understand it, Google is rewriting some of those. So really make sure that you look at this. Maybe if you already have SEO on your website and you've already got title tags, maybe have a look and make sure that they're still relevant, still working, and making sense. Then you've got your meta description, which is the next part down. So this isn't visible in any part of your site either. So again, it'll be in your SEO section of a good content management system, or it'll be in the actual HTML code. But it's that little description that's found under your title in search results. So this doesn't actually affect your ranking in search engine, but it's like a mini ad for your business and it's completely free. So if it's well written, it will encourage people to click through to your website, which is obviously the ultimate goal. So with this one, it's about 160 characters that you will have here to make sure that your text doesn't get cut off. Definitely don't use the same meta description for every page on your website, because every page is unique and therefore the description of what that page is should be unique. Keep in mind, if you don't specify or enter a meta description for your pages, Google will do it for you. Now, other search engines as well, my brain automatically diverts to saying Google, but how they do it is take a small sample of the text from your page. Now, sometimes it's not really the right text that you want. It's not, it can be cut off. It can be not that relevant. So make sure that you take control of this and you go through and really specify every meta description or a meta description for every page on your site. Then we've got alt tags and heading tags. So alt tags are used for images. So these are essentially the HTML tags that you can use to describe what an image is, because a web bot cannot see an image. So without that description, they don't have any idea what it is or if it's relevant. So if you've got some keywords in there, I would always include local keywords or the title of the page with the keywords that you're trying to rank for on a particular image on that page, and then what the image is. Now, this can really help with the SEO for that particular page, but if these web bots can find your image because it is labeled, your images might appear in Google Images searches as well. So that's an easy one. Then you've got heading tags. I have touched on headings a couple of times. So now to talk about the SEO impact of those, they are very important for SEO. The Google or web bots will determine what content is on your page and how important it is if your headings are labeled correctly. So for example, and as you can see in this sort of hierarchy here, the most important heading on your page should be labeled as an H1. Now, think about a reader. This should tell the user or the visitor to your site what the entire page is about. And then your H2, H3, H4, that might be what each particular section or even what paragraph, what the paragraph is about. So it is weighted. H1 tag is the most important. So main page heading, and then subsequent headings are less important and therefore are weighted less or lower. So I would think about it in that way. Every heading on the top of each of the pages on your website should be an H1. So what the entire page is about, and then scale them down from there. And that's, again, an easy SEO win. You probably already have headings on your website, but just making sure that they are actually labeled with the relevant H tag is absolutely crucial. Now looking at off-page SEO. So off-page SEO is everything that happens off your website that directs users back to your site. sorry, it just skipped ahead there. So these are actions taken outside of your website that will really impact the rankings in the search engine result pages. So off-page SEO, in my opinion, should make up the majority of your SEO strategy. Normally, you can do some good keyword research, update your website. It's not a one-off thing by any stretch. You always need to fine-tune your SEO program, but there's less month-by-month work that is involved in on-page SEO, unless there's algorithm changes and more competitors come in and that kind of thing. Off-page SEO is a continual process of really, I guess, building your website's authority and your website's credibility. So you want your website to rank above others that have a similar message. So the ways you can do that, first of all, link building. Link building is getting external pages to link to a particular page on your website. So building links can be complicated. Sometimes it's time consuming. Also, you have to keep in mind that not all links are sort of equal in terms of weighting and importance. So a link from a more authoritative website is going to make a lot greater impact on a search engine results page than a link from a newly built or low quality website. So webbots will count all the links coming in, but they don't consider them equal. So let's say you had 100 poor quality links, but your competitor had 15 good quality links and your websites were very similar. There's a good chance that your competitor will rank higher than you. So that's why, that you really need to focus on good quality links, so quality over quantity. Google's also very good at spotting a scam when it comes to link building. So you have to make sure that your link is good quality, that it comes from a trusted and a reputable site. And it should really be a site that's related to your business, your type of business, I should say. Normally, I find links have some kind of human intervention. So let's say you've got a membership with a particular industry organization. You might contact them and say, or, they might give you a listing in a directory. You might contact them and try and get the membership, but then get the link established. It could be a business partnership where you have been working with someone. Perhaps you're a stockist of their goods or whatever that might be. You might discuss with them, we've got this relationship, we'll put a link, can you link from your website back to our page? And you might consider reciprocal links and those kind of things. Unsolicited requests for links are never good. So you might get them. And sometimes people, will say all kinds of things. We'll give you a free listing on our website, but you have to put a link from your website back to ours. And if it doesn't make sense, it shouldn't be on your website. So if you are providing links to other websites, it has to be related to the content that you're actually linking to, and it should be likely to be clicked by the reader. So keep that in mind. If it doesn't make sense on your website, certainly don't put it on there, but don't expect anyone else to put a link to your website from theirs if it also doesn't make sense to their customers. But building backlinks really happens with networking, relationship building. You probably need a bit of a plan of action and to really think about who your partners are within the industry that you work in and what can sort of work there. Now, you can create inbound links yourself by adding your website to business directories and niche websites that might be relevant to your business. That's a really good way to get backlinks, and sometimes it's overlooked. So sometimes people don't, or they sort of miss creating these backlinks on directories like True Local, and we'll go through some of them soon, but your yellow pages and those kind of things can be really, really important. So always think about backlinks. A really good way to find backlinks is to sort of check out what your competitors are doing. So I think this is a little bit overlooked as well, but research your competitors by simply Googling their business name and then have a look at all the websites that they come up for. If those websites are relevant to your business, you can click through to them and see if there's an opportunity for you to also get a backlink. Then there's social media, which also sends signals to search engines like Google. So keep that in mind. The more likes, shares, comments, and general engagement that happens in a social space, it does send signals to search engines. So keep that in mind. That's really important as an off-page SEO strategy. Then brand mentions. So you might work with influencers, for example, that are giving you brand mentions. Now, these brand mentions could be linked or unlinked. Always ask for linked brand mentions if you can, but even in terms of unlinked brand mentions, it can still be valuable from an SEO perspective. Things like guest blogging and that kind of thing can be really helpful. Now, a tip here is to set up a Google alert for your business name. You could do that in your Google console. Basically what that does is anytime your business name is mentioned online in any sort of or in any search platform, it will send you an alert. You can then have a look at what's actually being said. Sometimes you might find people are talking about you but not linking back to you. So have a look at what is being said and have a look for opportunities where you could ask for a link. A good example of this is I had someone write an article about another business that I have. They'd never contacted us about the article. I wasn't aware that it had been written. They didn't link back to us, but through through a Google alert, I was notified of this. I was then able to get hold of the people and say, look, absolutely love the article. Thank you so much for writing it. Is there a chance you could just link back to our website? They were able to do that. And that's fantastic from a PR or from an exposure perspective, but also from an SEO perspective. So keep that in mind. Google alerts are great. In terms of business listings, I mentioned these are really good for SEO as well. So there are a few different business directories that I would consider. The essential ones, obviously having a Google My Business or a Google Business Profile, as it's now called, is really, really important, and taking control of that. So people might be already reviewing you, or, you might already have your information in a Google Maps sort of listing or a Google Places listing, but you haven't claimed it as the owner of the business. So if you haven't, certainly set that up. We have some great resources and information on how to really enhance your Google business profile as well. So things that you can use to really make sure that it increases your visibility in a Google search. So have a look at that. But any other review sites that are relevant to your business. So there could be, you could be in the health and wellness space. I think there's, health pages where people can go on and review different providers. There's TripAdvisor if you're in tourism, or Yelp if you're in hospitality. So there's lots of different review sites. Obviously, people can review you on Google, and they will. So certainly encourage those reviews, and also social media. But if there's any that are relevant to your business, certainly find out what the review sites are, and take control of any profiles that have already been established for your business. Then in terms of directories, there's about 25 or so, Australian business directories, but the most common and the most popular from an SEO perspective, or most helpful from an SEO perspective, are Yellow Pages, True Local, and Yelp. So at the very least, have a look at those. Like I said, these are opportunities to list your business. In most cases, a basic listing would be free. And you can then enhance your listing, pay for better listings if you want to, if it's going to generate business. But at the very least, these free listings are fantastic from an SEO perspective. For it to be helpful for local search or local SEO, you have to have a consistent name, address, and phone number on all of those business directories. It then becomes a critical local ranking factor. So let's say that you've got the same name, address, and phone number on 10 different business listing sites. When someone Googles physiotherapist in Perth, for example, and you've got your name, address, and phone number that all sort of says that same information, there's a good chance that you'll come up if that's your location. Now, if you don't have an address, and again, there's many businesses that are service providers, for example, or don't have a physical address, so they don't want to put an address online or in Google, so that's fine. But your directory listings or your local search is not really going to work without a physical address. So it does put you at a disadvantage. So keep that in mind. But also keep in mind, Australian business directories aren't just for boosting your local rankings from an SEO perspective. Sometimes they provide referral traffic. So sometimes people are actually on those sites and will click through to your website because you have a listing. So there is two sides to it. But at the very least, certainly go and add yourself to any local listings that might be free, because it will greatly help from an SEO perspective. Okay, so we're not going to go into detail on pay-per-click advertising as such, which is like your AdWords. It is fantastic. It's cost-effective. It's very immediate, very flexible, and obviously you can track absolutely everything that happens. So I would certainly encourage you to find out more on online advertising. But if you don't have a budget for online advertising, at a very bare minimum, I would recommend that you look at remarketing or retargeting. So SEO is ranking organically, obviously, and SEM or search engine marketing is where you set up your advertising, you pay per click, and the most common is Google AdWords. Or Google Ads, it's now called. They've recently rebranded. But remarketing is part of the Google Ads area. It's essentially increasing your brand awareness and influencing conversions, and it's a very, very low cost. So the concept is simple, as you can see on the diagram there. You've got a prospect, however they get to your website. It could be because they saw your car drive past with your website on it, or it could be that they've done a search. They visit your website and they're tracked. They then leave your website and your ads start to appear on other sites that they browse. Now they could appear as banners or pop-ups. So you would most definitely have been the recipient of remarketing, whether you've noticed or not. Some of the bigger companies are quite aggressive where you really do feel like you're being tracked. But keep in mind, you set the rules on that. So you will determine how often your ads appear to people and how many days you will follow them around. The best thing about it is you only pay when they actually click your ad. So they might see your ad and it might reinforce your brand into their customers' minds. But you're not paying for all of those impressions. You're only paying when someone clicks. There's also retargeting through Facebook, which is a very similar concept. Someone gets to your website. Once they're on your website, they're tracked. But then when they go back to social media, they are then seeing your ads in the Facebook and Instagram space. So this is, even more popular than Google remarketing, I would say, because most people are on social media quite a lot throughout their day. So there's more opportunity for your ads to appear for them. So certainly consider both your Google remarketing and Facebook retargeting or remarketing. They're both very, very cost effective. All right, so we're coming towards the end now, but just a quick touch on social media. Social media has made a huge impact on all industries because customers engage with social networking sites to research products and services. They're looking to make informed decisions about certain businesses, whether it's product or services, but people also actively want to share their personal experiences of any kind of business, really. And this user-generated content is seen by consumers as a lot more credible and authentic than advertising is. So think about what channels are accessed by your target markets. Now, this is really important. You can't be on all platforms. You might hear there's a lot of hype about TikTok or Snapchat, and you think, oh, I don't know. I don't have time to manage my Facebook account, let alone now learning TikTok and those kind of things. But you don't need to be on platforms unless your customers are on there. So the more intimately you know your target market, you will know exactly what social media channels they're on. So focus your efforts, especially as a small business owner or operator. Make sure that you are really only appearing and focusing your efforts where your target market is. So think about what people matter the most for you and be there. Build content for them. It should be snackable content, which is content that's bite-sized, easy for them to digest and want to know more. Because engagement is really what you're after. So it's, I wouldn't put pressure and say you need to post 5 times a day or, 5 times a week even. It's better off to wait till you've got quality content that's going to get you engagement. It's absolutely crucial that that engagement is there by way of likes, comments, and shares. So that sort of engagement is what's going to get you even more reach in your social media. As I mentioned earlier, from an SEO perspective, social media does send signals. So it's really important that engagement is there for search engines as well. So that's absolutely crucial. But not only should you look at posting on your own social channels, think of places that you've got memberships or any organizations that you work with and try and leverage their databases or their social followings as well by providing them content that they could potentially share to their social media. But keep in mind, you should be posting for mobile first, and it's a visual language. So don't post anything without some kind of image, or video is better. Reels are a lot more important and a lot more popular than they've ever been, but people are after that short, snackable content where they don't have to read if they don't want to read. They don't want to do too much work to be able to digest it, essentially. Again, we've got a lot of information and advisors that specialize in social media. So if this is an area that you want to work on, I'd really encourage you to reach out and get more info. Lastly, we'll talk very quickly about email marketing. Now, with email marketing, there is a range of software that you can access for cost-effective email marketing. It doesn't have to cost you a lot. You should hopefully within your business be obtaining a database. Obviously, those people have to sign up to any email marketing that you are delivering. So make sure that you've obtained the database the right way. Keep in mind, once you've got this database, so these should be your people that want to hear from you. So again, quality over quantity is really important. Don't worry about getting 10,000 email addresses if it's 10,000 people that don't know you and don't want to hear from you. So you really want to organically build your database with people that know you and want to hear information from you, but you have to provide information back to them that is not just promotional. So things like hints and tips and useful content to the audience is always going to do well. You can personalize it by knowing as much as you can about your database in terms of perhaps what they've purchased in the past, where they live, those kind of things, and then provide that non-promotional aspect of, like I said, information, tips, hints, that kind of thing. And then you can sometimes promote. If you're going to be sending out to your database different products or different information about different things, segmenting is fantastic. Again, the more you know about your database, the more you can segment it and then provide relevant information to them. Now, I've got on there that unsubscribes are good, and they really can be a good thing. You don't want people on your database that are not engaged with you. That does absolutely nothing. There's no value there whatsoever. So if you send something out to your database for the first time and you get a heap of unsubscribes, then I would ask yourself, why don't they want to hear from you? Was it the content? Was it the fact that, how you obtained the database? Was it, the time between when they first heard from you and now when they're hearing from you again and they've kind of forgotten who you are? So think about a few of those elements, but don't worry too much about unsubscribes. To get the best results with your emails, look at your from name and your subject line. So people, if they're signing up to something, they want to get an email from who they signed up to. Now, a good example of this is sometimes you've got a business, you sign up to a business, but then the email comes from perhaps their marketing person, and that's a bit of a no-no. You want it to come from the business name so that it's relevant to the person whose inbox it's landing in, and they go, oh yeah, I know that company, I'm going to read on. The next element of that is the subject line. So the subject line has to be desirable information for it to be opened or for people to want to read a little bit more. So if you're not already obtaining a database, I would certainly think about that and make that part of your marketing plan to keep in contact with your customers, obviously through social media, but also through emails if that's appropriate. So that's it from me. That wraps up our absolute fly through on some basic digital marketing, or some of the basics that I think you should consider. Keep in mind that everything that happens in a digital sense can be measured. So make sure that you're tracking all your results. Your good old monthly reporting is fantastic here where you can track things like web hits versus sales versus social engagement and really compare all of those results in one sort of central location. Now, if you do want to know more, I know I touched on where we have webinars and workshops and further information, but as part of this federal government program, you can get access to a business mentorship program. So 3 hours of one-on-one sessions for $44, and then the rest is sort of made up with other learning through webinars and workshops. So we can match you with an advisor that covers a range of different topics. So keep that in mind. There is a bit of eligibility around that. So if you haven't already signed up to to sign up through Business Station, you have to have an ABN that's registered in WA, Queensland or NT, employ fewer than 20 full-time staff, and you have to be operating for profit. So keep that in mind. The link is on the screen to register. If you've got any questions, please shoot them through now. Thank you so much for joining me today. And if I don't hear from you, I hope you have lots of success with your digital marketing, and reach out if you need any more info. Someone's just asked about the recording, and yes, within the next, normally it takes about 48 hours, that will be emailed to the email address that you registered with. So you certainly will get the recording. But if there's anything else that you need, just go through to our team in the head office and they can provide it. Great questions just popped up about when this program finishes and if there'll be another in the future. So this program finishes at the end of this month. There will be another program. The government hasn't actually released exactly what that will look like yet. So what I've seen over the last 4 or so years is that when one program ends, they release a similar program, but it can change a little bit. So there could be different rules around registration, or there might be, different number of sessions that you might be able to book. So keep that in mind. It can change a little bit. Someone else has asked if there's a service to review your current website layout and recommend any changes. There's not a service that I'm aware of, but this is the perfect question for one of our advisors. So if you're not already a part of this program, that would be fantastic to sign up. You could spend an hour with one of our website specialists. When you sign up, you could just say what sort of website content management system you have, and you'll be able to be matched with someone that can help you. And that's a really personalized way to go through your website as well. In terms of the next question we've had is if you will be notified about the future program. Yes, you will. So once we know what's going on and it's been announced through the government, they will then we will email you, anyone that's registered for any of our sessions or program, just to let you know what the new program is and how it might be available to you. All right, guys, thank you so much for the questions. And thanks again for joining me. I'm going to end the session now. I hope you have a great day and we meet again soon.